Imagine this for a moment. You're standing in a room full of people when someone suddenly insults you. Within seconds, your heart starts pounding, your face feels hot, and every instinct inside you screams the same thing. Fight back. You want to defend yourself, prove them wrong, and make sure everyone knows you're not weak. But what if the strongest response wasn't an answer at all? More than 1800 years ago, one of history's most powerful rulers faced this exact challenge countless times. As Emperor of Rome, Marcus Aurelius dealt with betrayal, criticism, and endless attempts to provoke him. Yet instead of reacting with anger, he followed a simple principle that allowed him to keep control over something far more valuable than any argument, his own mind. The lesson he practiced is just as powerful today as it was then. The first thing we must understand is that most provocation is intentional. Whether it comes from a coworker, a family member, a stranger online, or someone you barely know, people often provoke others because they want a reaction. They are not searching for truth or understanding. They are looking for emotional control. Think back to the last time someone upset you. Maybe a colleague made a sarcastic remark during a meeting. Maybe a relative mocked one of your life choices at a family gathering. Or perhaps someone on social media left a comment designed to irritate you. What did they really gain if you became angry? The answer is simple. They gained evidence that they could influence your emotions. The moment you lose your composure, they know they have reached inside your mind and controlled your behavior. That is exactly why reacting without thinking is so dangerous. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus understood this better than almost anyone. Unlike Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus wasn't born into power. He spent much of his early life as a slave and experienced hardships most people could hardly imagine. Yet despite those circumstances, he discovered a truth that changed countless lives. He taught that people are not hurt by events themselves, but by the meaning they attach to those events. An insult has no power on its own. It only becomes painful when we decide it defines us. That idea changes everything. If someone criticizes you and their words are true, then you've learned something useful. You now have an opportunity to improve yourself. But if their words are false, then why allow something untrue to steal your peace? Either way, anger offers no real benefit. Unfortunately, most people approach conflict as if every insult is a battle that must be won immediately. They prepare clever comebacks, raise their voices, or try to embarrass the other person. For a few seconds, this may feel satisfying, but afterward, the stress remains. The relationship becomes worse, and often, both people leave feeling defeated. The Stoics believe this happens because we've misunderstood the purpose of these moments. Provocation isn't a competition. It's an examination of character. The real question isn't whether you can defeat another person's words. It's whether you can protect your own peace. Marcus Aurelius carried one powerful reminder with him whenever someone criticized him. Instead of immediately defending himself, he would ask a simple question inside his own mind. Is there any truth in what this person is saying? If the answer was yes, he welcomed the correction because truth helps us grow. If the answer was no, then the criticism changed nothing about who he was. This mindset removed the emotional trap before it could take hold. Imagine attending a family dinner where someone jokes about your career in front of everyone. The old reaction would be immediate. You'd explain your achievements. You compare yourself to others. You try to prove your worth. But imagine responding differently. Instead of becoming defensive, you calmly ask, "That's an interesting perspective. What makes you think that?" Notice what happens. The entire atmosphere changes. The other person expected resistance. They expected frustration. They were prepared for an argument. Instead, they're met with calm curiosity. Without emotional resistance, their attempt to provoke suddenly loses momentum. Very often, they become uncomfortable because the conversation is no longer giving them what they wanted. This is why calmness is not weakness. It is control. The Roman philosopher Seneca described anger as a temporary form of madness. In those moments, people stop thinking clearly and begin acting entirely on emotion. And that's exactly what makes anger so dangerous. The angrier you become, the easier you are to predict. People learn exactly which words upset you. They discover which buttons to press. They know how to manipulate your emotions because you've shown them the map. Calmness, however, gives them nothing. Someone who remains composed cannot easily be manipulated. Their next move is impossible to predict. Their confidence doesn't depend on winning an argument. It comes from remaining in control of themselves. That is the hidden strength Marcus Aurelius practiced throughout his life. His goal wasn't to silence other people. His goal was to make sure no one else controlled his thoughts. Every insult became a choice. Every criticism became information rather than an attack. Every provocation became another opportunity to strengthen his character instead of weakening it. The next time someone tries to upset you, remember this. They're offering you two paths. One path leads to anger, regret, and giving them exactly the reaction they hope for. The other leads to peace, confidence, and complete control over your own mind. The remarkable thing is that no one can choose that path for you. Only you can. Most people believe staying calm is easy when the problem is small. But what happens when betrayal is so deep that almost anyone would demand revenge? This is where Marcus Aurelius proved that Stoicism wasn't just a philosophy, it was a way of living. During his reign, Marcus faced one of the greatest betrayals imaginable. While he was away dealing with serious health problems, rumors spread across the Roman Empire that the emperor had died. The uncertainty created fear, confusion, and opportunity for those hungry for power. Among them was one of Marcus's most trusted military commanders, a man who had earned honor, authority, and influence under Marcus's leadership, suddenly declared himself the new emperor. It wasn't merely political ambition. It was personal betrayal. Someone Marcus had trusted with the safety of the empire decided that loyalty no longer mattered once he believed the throne was empty. Imagine discovering that one of your closest allies had turned against you the moment they thought you were weak. Most people would react with rage. They would demand punishment. They would seek revenge as quickly as possible. Marcus Aurelius surprised everyone. Instead of allowing anger to control him, he reportedly told those around him that he hoped the conflict could end peacefully. Rather than dreaming of punishment, he wished for the chance to speak with the man who had betrayed him. He wanted to understand why it had happened. Even more remarkable, Marcus expressed a willingness to forgive him if the opportunity ever came. Think about how extraordinary that response was. He wasn't powerless. He commanded the strongest military force in the known world. If anyone possessed the authority to destroy an enemy completely, it was Marcus Aurelius. Yet he understood something many leaders never learn. Power without self-control eventually destroys itself. Before Marcus could meet the rebel commander, events took an unexpected turn. The general was killed by his own followers, who realized their rebellion had failed. His severed head was brought to Marcus as a trophy. The soldiers expected praise. They expected rewards. They believed the emperor would celebrate his enemy's death. Instead, Marcus refused to even look at it. He ordered the remains to be buried respectfully and rejected the idea of celebrating another man's destruction. Even more surprising, he showed mercy to many people connected to rebellion, including members of the commander's family. History remembers this decision not because it was easy, but because it was incredibly rare. Marcus understood that revenge may satisfy anger for a moment, but justice guided by wisdom leaves a legacy that lasts far longer. Now you might think, I'll never face a rebellion or fight for an empire. That's true, but the principle remains exactly the same. Every day people experience smaller versions of betrayal. A trusted friend shares a private secret. A co-worker takes credit for your hard work. Someone you love speaks badly about you behind your back. In those moments, your emotions urge you toward immediate retaliation. You want them to feel the same pain they caused you. But before acting, Marcus would ask himself one simple question. What will this reaction cost me? Would revenge restore his peace? Would anger rebuild broken trust? Would humiliation make him a better leader? The answer was almost always no. That doesn't mean Marcus accepted injustice. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings about Stoicism. Being calm does not mean allowing people to mistreat you. It does not mean remaining silent forever. Stoicism teaches that emotion should never become the decision maker. You can set firm boundaries without shouting. You can disagree without losing control. You can defend yourself without becoming consumed by anger. Imagine someone falsely accuses you during an important meeting. One response is to interrupt them, raise your voice, and argue until nobody remembers what actually happened. The other response is very different. You wait, you breathe, then you calmly say, "That statement isn't accurate. Let me explain what actually happened." Notice the difference. The words carry more weight because they're supported by composure instead of emotion. People naturally trust someone who appears in control. When anger takes over, even good arguments begin to lose credibility. Seneca often warned that anger tricks us into believing we're becoming stronger. In reality, we're becoming easier to manipulate. The louder we become, the less clearly we think. The more emotional we become, the more predictable our actions become. True strength isn't measured by how fiercely you can attack someone. It's measured by how completely you remain in command of yourself. Marcus Aurelius practiced this discipline every single day. He knew difficult people would always exist. Critics would always speak. Jealous individuals would always try to provoke others. None of that could be controlled. The only thing that belonged entirely to him was his response. That is why his greatest victories were never won on the battlefield. They were won inside his own mind. Every time he chose reason instead of revenge. Every time he answered hatred with dignity. Every time he refused to let anger decide his actions. He strengthened something no enemy could ever conquer. His character. And that's the lesson history continues to remember centuries later. Empires eventually disappear. Power changes hands. Names fade. But self-control remains one of the rare qualities that never loses its value. The next time someone betrays your trust or tries to pull you into an emotional battle, pause for just a moment. Ask yourself the same question Marcus Aurelius once asked. Will this reaction make me stronger, or will it simply make me easier to control? That single pause has the power to change not only one Knowing the philosophy is one thing. Living it when emotions are burning inside you is something completely different. Let's be honest. Even after understanding every Stoic lesson, there will still be moments when someone says something that hurts. You may stay calm on the outside, but inside, anger continues to grow long after the conversation ends. Does that mean you failed? Not at all. It simply means you're human. The Stoics never claimed that wise people stop feeling emotions. They understood that the first wave of anger arrives automatically. Your heartbeat rises. Your stomach tightens. Your thoughts race. That first reaction isn't the problem. The real question is what happens next. Do you allow that emotion to take control of your decisions? Or do you observe it, let it pass, and choose your response with a clear mind? Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus all experienced enormous suffering throughout their lives. Marcus lost children, fought devastating wars, and ruled during one of the deadliest plagues Rome had ever seen. Seneca faced political exile before being forced to end his own life. Epictetus spent years living as a slave, enduring pain and humiliation before becoming one of history's greatest teachers. These weren't men who spoke about peace because life had been easy. They earned that peace through hardship. One of Marcus Aurelius' greatest habits was changing the way he viewed the people who hurt him. Instead of immediately labeling them as enemies, he asked himself another question. What kind of person behaves this way? Most of the time, the answer wasn't strength. It was fear, insecurity, jealousy, confusion. People often hurt others because they haven't learned how to deal with their own pain. That realization doesn't excuse their behavior. It doesn't mean you should trust them again or ignore injustice. It simply prevents their actions from poisoning your own character. Think about a violent storm. You don't become angry at the rain. You don't spend weeks resenting the wind. You accept that storms exist, protect yourself, and continue moving forward. Marcus believed difficult people should often be viewed in the same way. You may not control their behavior, but you always control your own. Another powerful Stoic practice is preparing yourself before problems appear. Most people wake up hoping nothing goes wrong. Then the first rude comment ruins their entire day. Marcus Aurelius did the opposite. Every morning he reminded himself that he would probably meet impatient people, dishonest people, selfish people, and arrogant people. Not because he wanted to become pessimistic, but because preparation removes surprise. When difficulty finally appeared, it wasn't unexpected. He had already decided who he wanted to be. You can practice the same exercise. before going to work, before attending a family gathering, before opening social media, take 1 minute and imagine someone criticizing you. Picture yourself remaining calm. Imagine answering with confidence instead of emotion. Imagine walking away without regret. When that moment eventually arrives in real life, it will feel strangely familiar. Instead of reacting automatically, you'll remember that you've already practiced this situation. That's how self-control becomes stronger, not through luck, through repetition. Every difficult conversation becomes another opportunity to train your mind. Eventually, something remarkable begins to happen. The insults that once ruined your day begin losing their power. The comments that once kept you awake at night become easier to forget. Not because people changed, but because you did. Marcus Aurelius often described the human mind as a fortress. Picture an ancient stone fortress standing on top of a mountain. Outside the walls there are storms, enemies, chaos, and noise. Inside the walls there is calm. No enemy can enter unless someone inside opens a gate. That image perfectly describes your own mind. People can criticize you. They can insult you. They can misunderstand you. They can even betray you. But none of those things automatically steal your peace. Only one person has the key to that gate. You. Every time you answer anger with more anger, you quietly hand that key to someone else. You allow another person's behavior to decide who you become. But every time you pause, every time you choose patience over revenge, every time you refuse to let emotion control your actions, you strengthen the walls of that fortress. Little by little, your peace becomes impossible for others to steal. That is the real victory Stoicism offers. Not winning every argument, not proving everyone wrong, not always having the last word. Its greatest gift is something far more valuable. Freedom. Freedom from being controlled by every insult. Freedom from carrying yesterday's anger into tomorrow. Freedom from allowing someone else's bad behavior to define your character. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, remember this. They're not testing your intelligence. They're not testing your success. They're testing your self-control. And every calm response is another brick added to the fortress you're building inside yourself. Marcus Aurelius left behind countless lessons, but perhaps none is more powerful than this. No person can truly disturb your inner peace unless you first give them permission. Protect that peace. Guard it carefully. Because once you learn to master your own reactions, you possess a strength that no insult, no betrayal, and no enemy can ever take away. That is a quiet power of the Stoics. And it remains just as valuable today as it was 2,000 years ago.